If you believe me, getting on a unicycle is harder than actually riding. Today we're going to go over one trick that'll be helpful for you when learning how to mount, and I'm going to explain to you why it's useful. I've talked about this before, but there are two crank positions that you can utilize to help you get on. One is a vertical crank position. It's advantageous because once your foot is on the bottom pedal, the wheel isn't going to move. The bad part about it is that once you actually get on, pushing down on a vertical crank isn't going to be helpful to actually move the wheel. It's usually helpful when you're horizontal. The second crank position is a horizontal crank position, and it's advantageous for the reasons why the vertical crank position is not. If you push down on a horizontal crank, you're more likely to move the tire because all the force you're imparting is going towards moving the tire. The bad part about it is when you put pressure on this pedal to actually mount the unicycle, it's going to move. And it's harder to get on a moving apparatus than it is to get on a stable one. So it's really up to you what you choose. Do you want a stable unicycle that makes it easy to get on but hard to start riding? Or do you want an unstable unicycle that makes it kind of hard to get on, but you're going to be in the most advantageous position to actually get going? There are some options that give you the best of both worlds, like a curb or a unicycle starting block, where you're in a horizontal crank position to get going, but the unicycle is stable because it's pushed up against the curb, or the pedal can't move because the unicycle starting block is stopping it. The question is, can we replicate a curb or a unicycle starting block if we don't have one? And the answer is yes. What I want you to do is put your unicycle in a horizontal crank position like you normally would, and take a seat. Instead of taking this foot and putting it on the pedal that's closest to you and pushing down, I want you to take this foot and put it on the pedal that's closest to you, and instead point your toe down and pull that pedal towards you. What this is going to do is, instead of using your body weight to push down on the pedal to make the unicycle stable, you're actually going to use your muscles to make the unicycle stable. So if I were to pull that pedal towards myself, the unicycle still is in a locked position, and I am able to take my other foot and step on the pedal without the unicycle moving. What I really want you to focus on is really trying to pull back on this pedal rather than pushing down on it. It is possible to pull back and push down at the same time, which is why it's helpful that you point your toes down, because it's really hard to push down with your toes down. Essentially, the more you pull back on the pedal with your hamstring, the more steady the unicycle will be when you're mounting. And just remember, as soon as your foot hits that other pedal, start riding normally since you're in the best position to get going. I've been unicycling since 2007, even though sometimes it doesn't look like it. And I've never heard of this trick until last year from Jackson and Kevin in Chicago, so shout out to them. Given all the different ways to mount, this is probably the best and most efficient way for beginners to learn. It teaches you a little bit about unicycle mechanics, and it teaches you to let your weight rest on the seat. If you're just starting out, you should probably get in the habit of this anyway. There's also a technique that people might advocate for by putting your toe or a sole of your foot on the crank where it meets the hub, right where the crank rotates. People might suggest this because you're putting pressure on the crank that really doesn't translate to wheel rotation. Your weight isn't contributing to making the wheel move, it's just resting on the wheel itself. However, this technique might be a little rough since there's nothing keeping the wheel from rolling out from under you. You're not keeping the wheel still, you're just keeping it from moving forward. Don't get me wrong, I think this is super helpful, but the way I'm advocating for pulling the pedal back and actively keeping the wheel in place is better. Remember, toe down, weight on the seat, really pull back, and right when that foot hits the other pedal, start riding. Let me know in the comments if this is helpful, and consider subscribing if you want more tips like this. Thanks and good luck.